Hello and welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Ruby Reese. Shortly, we will be joined by Meredith Ritter from pawfessional.ie to talk about a wonderful title, When Less is More. And I think Meredith is already in the room. So we're just getting started.
Hi.
Hi, Meredith. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
Would you do us the pleasure of introducing yourselves?
Sure. So hi, I'm Meredith, and I am the owner of Pawfessional Pet Services, or pawfessional.ie, and I've been a dog trainer for five years, I think now, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I am the proud owner of a dog called Callie. She is a 3.5-year-old miniature pincer. So a lot of our chat today will be about her and how she's sort of changed my career, and shaped it into what it is now. So I'm a Mantrailing global instructor. I got qualified last year, and that's a big part of what I do. And so I suppose we'll talk about that in a bit.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that very comprehensive introduction. A few words to me for those of you that don't know me. I'm Killian from Ruby Reese. We're an Irish dog brand, and we set up these talks just kind of a couple of months ago because we were going to lots of dog events around the country, meeting people just like Meredith that have wealth of information within our own very own Irish dog community. And we said, you know what, why would we just keep this information to ourselves and all the great information we're learning? We have to share that around as well. So thank you so much for joining. I also have a couple of sentences that I normally say as a little disclaimer. So we like to keep this very informal and chatty on this format. So we will be making sweeping generalizations that may not necessarily speak to you, your dog, or your own situation. So if you do have any concerns, please do speak to a certified professional. And with that, we can launch into the topic, when less is more, low intensity activities and the high drive dog. So tell us a bit about Callie and the types of high intensity things that you used to do together might be a good place to start.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good one. So we got Callie 2 days before we went into lockdown. So she came to live with us 2 days before everything shut down. And so that was an interesting learning curve, trying to navigate the world of everything shut down. There are no puppy classes, there are no puppy socialization sessions. And then as well, like, you don't want to be near anybody. So we got through that, and that was fine. And about the time she was 16 weeks old, we signed up for Foundation Agility. Because when I got her, I knew she was going to be high energy, terrier, typical, needed something to do, needed to work her brain, and make sure she had a proper outlet. So we got started with agility, and like, I loved it. It was so much fun. We had a great time building our relationship and learning how to work with each other. She taught me a lot about training a dog that isn't massively food motivated. So that was really interesting to go through. And then, so we did that for about a year. And then she developed a health issue that we had no idea was going to happen. So she started going into her nails just started breaking. They became really brittle. We couldn't figure out why it was happening. And after some back and forth with the vet and having to go to the vet several times to get nails removed and bandaged, and her feet having to be bandaged loads, we discovered it was a disorder called oncodystrophy.
Okay.
Which is basically a form of lupus that only affects her nails and her nail growth. So they still aren't the best. They're still not normal, but through trial and error with some supplements and some food changes, we have pretty much gotten to the point where I think it's been about 6 months since her last nail break.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant to hear that. And so is this a common problem people need to be looking out for, or is this an extremely rare situation?
So it's not as rare as I thought it was initially. Apparently my vet has seen several cases of this particular disease. It's an autoimmune disorder, and it affects her in some other ways. So like she didn't respond to her vaccines. And something else that I can't remember now. Anyway, apparently it's more common in German Shepherds and dogs with the black and tan coloration than most other breeds, but I suppose it could happen in any dog.
Okay.
But one of the vets I was speaking to in my clinic was under the impression it could be a food allergy. So we think it might have been brought on by a food change back when she was younger, and that triggered the epigenetic of this particular disease, and we now have to deal with that for the rest of her life. A lot of it now is just management and keeping on top of her supplements and making sure she's on the right diet and that sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, not massively common, but not totally uncommon.
Absolutely. And then, so you found out that you had this condition, and this changed obviously because you mentioned that you used to spend a lot of time doing agility to keep her mind going. So this changed basically your whole lifestyle because of it. So before we move on to where you kind of went with that, you mentioned something very interesting that maybe we don't touch on often enough. You said that that she isn't extremely food motivated. So
she is now. That has changed since we've gotten older. But yeah, when she was a puppy, like, yeah, she ate her food, and but she wasn't mad about the food that she was getting. So like when we first started out, obviously as a dog trainer, I had notions. I was like, she's going to eat this. These are going to be her treats. This is what we're going to do for her day-to-day life. And she just turned everything on its head. So yes, I suppose every dog is food motivated to a point, but she's not like your Labrador that's going to do anything you want because you have food in front of it. She was like, what do you have? Is it worth it? Maybe I'm doing something else. So food, because she was a well-fed dog, she wasn't mad keen to do anything you asked her to do just because you had a bit of ham, for example.
But was it tension, or was kind of maybe the buzz out of doing something really fun and cool? Was that kind of her motivation to do
so
things?
Yeah, so she was more motivated by play and by toys, tug toys especially. Like we used tug toys for the majority of teaching her recall, because she loved running back and grabbing it and just having a big tug.
Sure.
I suppose being a terriers are bred to grab, bite and shake. So she was very much along that line of, oh my God, that's a fluffy thing, I want to grab it and I want to kill it and I want to pull all the hair out. So that's what she wanted. So I had to tap into that. I had to learn how to use toys as a reinforcer, as a motivator in our training together. And I suppose a lot of that was also through the agility training as well, because you use sort of a mix, depending on your dog and what their motivation is. You use a mix of food and toy rewards. So we were using a lot of toy rewards in her agility training, and I just sort of took that and ran with it then.
Yeah.
I suppose.
No, that's perfect, and it's always interesting to hear these points of view, because I'm sure lots of people out there have dogs. We meet people all the time, with natural treats being one of the product lines that we work with. Absolutely. We hear lots of people saying, I've got fussy eaters, or that they're not food driven, etc.
Yeah. So I think a lot of that is figuring out what's motivating for that particular dog. And if they're getting 2 or 3 square meals a day, then they might not be keen about the treat that you have in front of them. So maybe try different sorts of treats, or try and utilize toy play and interaction as a motivator instead.
Exactly. And talking about interaction, there's been a couple of interesting comments coming in as well. I'm not ignoring them. So someone mentioned, just to get the full scope of how Callie I suppose was at the beginning anyway, how long of walks was she able to do, and you know, how restricted was she then
Very.
with her?
So once her nails started breaking, her oh god, we were really restricted in what we could do. So obviously when she had broken nails, she was in bandages because they walk on their feet, obviously. So if her toes weren't bandaged when they had broken nails or nails that had to be removed, she would have been at risk for infection. So she was in bandages. Anytime it was wet, we had to put little booties on her to bring her outside to go toilet. Even when she was inside, we had to keep her quiet, which was difficult with a dog that was only 1.5 years old. And so like we couldn't even bring her for walks, really. So we had to do stuff inside, keeping her mind busy, giving her chews, giving her snuffle mats. But all the while, like, because she's a small dog, keeping her food allowance down because her exercise was also down. So we had to make sure that we weren't giving her too many calories. So like scent work came into it a lot with that, because we could get her to sniff things out, but not it's not high intensity, so she wasn't moving around a huge amount, but it's so intense for their brain that she would be able to do that for a few minutes and then chill out.
And this is probably where the change started evolving then. So you kind of went for, like you mentioned, snuffle mats and then on to scent work, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we got through her nails breaking all the time and she could be back outside again, she couldn't be off lead running around, because there was always the chance that she might catch her nail on something and it would break off and we'd be back to the vet for another nail clip and bandage. So we had to do on lead stuff. So I was looking for something semi-active to do with her, that she could still go and do something, but she was going to be sort of slowed down doing it because she'd be on lead.
Yeah.
So we found man trailing. And man trailing is teaching our dogs to follow a human scent, to find that human who has gone out to hide in the woods, around a building, wherever. So we use it for sport training, but it is also a search and rescue technique that is used by, I think, Starda and some other teams in Ireland. We don't do operational, we just do sport and pet dog training, because I liked it. I loved it for Callie. It was such a game changer for her, because she could go and she could be out in the forest or in a park or at a university and do something and be out and around amongst people, but not running around like a mad thing and potential of hurting herself.
Exactly. So there's a slow kind of, the physical side of it is a bit slowed down, but the brain keeps going because they're trying to follow it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we also got into scent detection as well, through another trainer out in Kildare. And like that's something that we can do at home. We don't have to have other people to do scent detection, because she's trained to find scent, a particular scent. So the one that she's trained on at the minute is clove. So scented pieces of fabric that are scented with clove scent. Little pieces of clove, and you hide them in a room or in the house somewhere, and you tell her to go and find it, and off she goes, and you can hear her sniffing because it's so high and it's such high intensity.
And so will this just carry through the air, or are you like trailing this along the ground as you go, like to leave a scent, or how does that work?
Yeah, so with the scent detection with the pieces of fabric, obviously as you're walking with the piece in your hand or in a pair of tweezers or however you're transporting it, unless you're taking the jar with you and only opening it on the spot that you're placing it, there's going to be a little bit of scent that's coming out into the air. Now it does oxidize, so they're able to tell the difference between older scent and where the newer part of the scent is, but also like where the source of the scent is. So if, for example, you're in a room and you walk from, I don't know, your kitchen table to the door and you hide the piece of fabric near the door, there's going to be a little bit of scent from on the trail from where you walked from the table to the door, but the majority of the scent is going to be
Location.
I'm just reading Kira's message. It's going to be, the majority of the scent cloud is going to be at the door where the piece of fabric is.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that makes total sense. And I suppose, like, even just so I have a very vague idea, or so that people watching it have a vague idea, like, how do you even teach a dog that this is a good thing to search for? You know, like,
that's a great question. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways you can teach it. So when we were training for the clove scent, we started out teaching her how to indicate when there was food. So we used a box with a hole in it. So you could use a cardboard box, you could cut holes in it. And you put a bit of food in, put the box on the ground, let her go and investigate it. And then as soon as she put her nose near that hole, you mark and reward. So you tell her, good, you found it, and then you give her a piece of food. So that was how we started out with clove. And then when you can also start out with Kong. So I recently qualified as a World Scent Dog Association instructor, scent detection instructor. And we use Kong and gun oil and catnip. So and you teach every single one of them a slightly different way. So with Kong, you just feed them from the Kong for a week or two until they're starting to anticipate good things coming from that rubber ball material. And so they develop a positive association with the smell of the rubber that the Kong is made of, and then you can start to use the Kong as an object to find. So, and then so it's all through association with something that they like, basically. So everything that you're teaching, you're starting out with something that they like. Food generally, really high quality, high value treats, and then you're teaching them. You're basically associating that then with the item or the scent that you want them to find.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
I was like, how do I break it down really simply?
And it's and that's the most difficult thing is to break these things down when you already have so much experience with something to explain it to a lay person that might not understand. So thank you, I appreciate that. And moving so that scent work can obviously be done indoors, and then the man training is typically an outdoor activity.
Generally, yeah, for the majority of the time, man trailing is done outdoors. Some of my fellow instructors have done sessions where, like, I know one of the ladies over in the UK has trailed into train stations and places like that, but they generally start outdoors. So majority of the time you're going to be doing your trailing outside. But there's options to go into places as long as they're pet friendly and you sort of check with them in advance. But yeah. So the majority of the time you're doing outside, you need bigger areas. You need at least like 50 meters or more to be able to do at least even a short trail.
Yeah. And I suppose, so is there a season in Ireland as well for man training? Like, Ireland, I guess, is a mild climate, so maybe it's different to other countries as well, is it?
Yeah, I suppose it depends. So I like it's been pretty steady since I started last August. So it's been over a year now that I've been teaching, and it's been fairly steady, I suppose. Like, it's a little quiet around the summer holidays and other midterm events, and coming up to Christmas as well, it'll be a little bit quiet. But for the most part, it's fairly steady. Like, this is Ireland. The dogs, for the most part, are going for walks out in this weather anyway. So unless we have a weather warning or like extreme temperatures, then we're pretty much outside doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's wearing the right gear and making sure that your dog is appropriately motivated and kitted out to make sure that they're happy and you're happy.
And I think that's actually the main thing I was just about to say as well. I can imagine our little Frenchie Ruby not being entirely motivatable on a day that's lashing rain,
Yeah.
or and
Same.
with she has good breathing, luckily for Frenchie, but I can't
Right.
imagine a day over 22 degrees that she'd
Yeah.
want to go anywhere.
Yeah, and in actual fact, like anytime it was over about 20, I think we cancelled over the summer, or just postponed until it had cooled off in the evening, or maybe we started earlier before the heat started, or we just sort of changed it so that it suited the dogs. Because like when your dog is actively searching for something, their respiration goes up to somewhere between 140 to 200 breaths per minute. So imagine a dog breathing that quickly in heat that's like 20 degrees or more. Their core temperature is going up. They're more likely to overheat, and that just wasn't a risk I was willing to take with anybody's dogs.
And it makes total sense as well, because I mean, when you're sniffing effectively, it's multiple short breaths, isn't it? So it's almost like hyperventilation, I guess. So
yeah, like I suppose dogs sniff a little bit differently than we do, because they are more appropriately kitted out for that. There's a better word for that, but anyway, they have. Callie's just outside the door and she has a squeaky toy. Oh. And I was like, what was that noise? Because I didn't expect it. Anyway, she's out there playing, having a great time. So dogs have, you've seen the flaps at the side of their noses. So that allows them to bring air in and bring air, I forget the exact percentages, but some of it goes up into the Jacobson's organ, which allows them to process scent information, and then the rest of it will go into their lungs for respiration. But then those flaps allow them to take air in and release air without the air that they're exhaling interfering with the air that they're bringing back in. Yeah. Yes. So, and then as well, because of the way that their nose works, I don't think it's as short breaths as it would be like if we were sniffing something. So like they're able to split the air so that most of it goes into their lungs so they're able to breathe properly, but some of it then is going up into that information center as well. And it makes total sense that evolution has taken care of them on the sniffing front, because that's what they do best. So what they do, exactly. It makes total sense. Okay, so you mentioned through Callie's her diagnosis, and then the recovery period, or working towards kind of managing her illness. You mentioned that you changed your whole business, really. So you've kind of built up a business model that works for you around this, and you can help other people, correct? Yeah. So when I started out, before I got qualified as a dog trainer. So obviously I started out walking dogs initially, and then assisting classes and learning how to be a dog trainer. So then I got qualified in 2019 and decided I was going to do puppy classes. I was going to work with adolescents, and I was just going to do like life skills, manners, obedience style stuff. Had a little idea about the world of scent, but not a huge knowledge base. Like most of my training had been sit down, lead, walking, recall, those sorts of things, like the basics that you do when you get a dog. I knew scent was great for them, but I didn't realize until I got Callie how great it was. So she came along, her health issues started, and then when I got into the world of man trailing and the world of scent detection, I was like, there's a whole other side of dog training that no one is really doing in Dublin. So I went and got qualified as a man trailing instructor and decided that was going to be the majority of what I wanted to teach. One, because I loved it, but two, because I saw what a benefit it was for my dog. And how, even though she wasn't at full health, she was still able to do it without the repercussions that you would have with a dog that was potentially in a bit of pain. Like, she was on pain medication and everything, so she was like, that was being managed, and we were working towards her being healthier and that. But she still, like, she was still a young dog. She needed an outlet for her brain.
Yeah.
So we could go and do a little bit of man trailing or a little bit of scent detection, and she could come home and have a rest and still be okay. Whereas if we tried to continue with agility, there was a potential that she would go and do a course of or a round of agility and then come home and maybe be a little bit lame because she was in pain.
Sure. So
it did massively affect what I decided to do then long term. So now 90% of my business, I'd say, is man trailing and scent.
Okay. And where does someone start off? So is there an introductory course, or how does the person that's interested but doesn't really know what man trailing is all about, how do they dip their toe into the water first?
So if you have a dog, I'd say the best place to start is finding your local instructor and doing a course with your own dog.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing if you enjoy it, if you enjoy doing it with your own dog, or even if you don't have a dog, borrow a dog. Maybe your cousin or your sister or a friend has a dog that you can borrow and take to a course. Try it out, go and do that, see what it's about, and then if it is something that you are more interested in, have a chat with your instructor. See, there's a couple of books that you could get, or there is an instructor's course that, well, depending on where you're based, there's one up the north, there's one in Cork, and then there are multiple every year over in the UK, and then there's some in America and some other places like that through Man Trailing Global. So Man Trailing Global is who I'm qualified with. And I found that they gave me a really good blend of practical and theory to learn about the world of scent, but also how to teach other people about the world of scent and how to trail with their dogs and how to make my trailing with my own dog better.
Yes, sounds brilliant. And so what can a beginner expect from a very introductory short course? And does, I suppose, linked to that, does a beginner need a whole load of equipment, or is this a low maintenance kind of sport?
Great question. So I'm going to start with the equipment part first, and then I'm probably going to forget what else you asked me, and we'll go back and forth. So as far as equipment, very minimal equipment. So you need a harness, a collar, a lead, and a long line. And if you don't have any of those, or if you don't have some of those, I'm assuming people are going to have either a collar or a harness and at least a short lead. And then what I mean by a long line is basically something like this. It's tangled, of course. Something like this, between sort of 7 to 10 meters, unless you have a spaniel, and then you're going to want 15 meters.
Okay.
I'm joking. But yeah, so you want something between 7 and 10 meters at the very basic, so that your dog can work independently of you and go out and follow the trail, because obviously you're not necessarily going to know where the trail layer has gone. So they need to learn how to use their nose to follow the scent. So those are and then obviously you'll want whatever motivates your dog. So food, high value treats, ball, squeaky toy, tug toy, anything like that. And then play around, bring everything to your intro, because just because you think your dog might be a little bit motivated by chicken, but if you bring out a squeaky tennis ball, they might be like, oh my God, where has that been all my life?
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I was down in Cork doing my intro with a client's dog. So I couldn't bring Callie because she had broken a nail 2 weeks beforehand. Typical. So I brought a client's dog, and he was cool about the food. He was like, yeah, it's grand. I'll do what you want me to do. This is fine. But I brought his bite rope with us, so just a tug toy with handles at each end. And the minute we got that involved with the trailing, he was like, oh my God, why didn't you just bring that out in the first place? This is the best game ever. So it's going to vary per dog. And then what else did you ask me? What can you expect from an introductory course?
Exactly.
So as an attendee, as a client with your own dog, what you can expect is to have fun, to understand what you're being asked to do. So your instructor should be able to break it down so that you understand what the whole game is. You should expect your dog to have at least a basic understanding of the game by the end of the day. And did I mention to have fun?
Yes.
So like the whole point of it is to enjoy the day and to spend time with your dog and to build that relationship with your dog. And if you're not having fun, then like I don't really see the point. But like your instructor should be able to set it up in such a way, either on your intro or maybe in a different scenario, in such a way that your dog is understanding what they're being asked to do. So sometimes the first trail they'd be like, I think we're just out for a walk, and there just happens to be somebody holding food behind the tree there. Yeah. But then by the second or third time they're out, they should be like, oh, this is starting to make sense. That person takes the food or the toy and they go out, and now I have to go and find them so I can get my reward.
Yeah.
So like not every dog will understand it 100% by the end of your intro. Like I have dogs that have taken a couple of sessions before they're like, I understand this game. Whereas other dogs, they'll figure it out by the second trail they ever do.
And I think we all get that as well with our dogs, because there's certain things that you try to train, even if it's a simple sit, and eventually there's the click moment. And so for some certain things it works quickly, and for other things it doesn't. And I mean, we know ourselves for Ruby, she'll always click for the kind of high energy stuff. So if you're trying to get her to twist around or to jump up or to do something like that, she'll get it really quickly because she wants to. She likes that kind of adrenaline rush or whatever she gets from it. Whereas something like a sit, something where she actually has to stay put, she doesn't. It's hard. She doesn't particularly love that. But,
I think a lot of times we do ask dogs to sit an awful lot when there's other things potentially that we could be asking them to do. Like I recently went to a class with another friend of mine who's a dog trainer, and one of the exercises was to wait until she was released to go and search for something. And I was like, okay, cool, we'll do a sit. She can do a sit and wait, and then I'll go and place the thing out, and then I'll release her to go. And she was really struggling with the sit part, and maybe it was because the grass was wet. She does know a sit, and she can do a sit and wait, but maybe it was because the grass was wet, or maybe it was too long, or maybe it was too prickly or whatever, but she wasn't happy to sit for her wait while she was waiting for me to go and put the thing out. So my friend came along, my trainer came along, and she was like, she can just stand and wait, and that's fine. And so as long as like your dog can stand and wait or lie down and wait, like there are other things sometimes that we can ask them to do that aren't necessarily sit and don't do anything.
And it fulfills the same purpose, exactly. And so like you mentioned as well different areas of the country. So where are your classes based in the work that you do? Where do you focus?
So I'm based in South Dublin. My intros are in Rathfarnham, which is not far from Dundrum Shopping Centre. And then my progression sessions from there, aren't based there. They are based around South Dublin, Kildare, Wicklow. We have plans to do Meath and Louth as well. But yeah, sort of all over the place. Okay. So like generally, like if there's somebody out in Kildare or Wicklow or somewhere else that wants to get started, then they can come. Like probably the biggest travel part will be the intro, because I only do my intros in one place at the minute, because that's where that's the best venue that I found so far to do my intros. But then the progression sessions after that could be much closer to them.
Sure. Absolutely. Sounds good. And I suppose, where can someone find more information? I'm guessing Instagram and your website, right?
Yeah, Instagram and the website, or just pop me a message or an email, and I'm always happy to point people in the right direction. And if they're not based near me, then I am happy to tell them who is closest, because there are trainers in Waterford, Cork, I'm going to forget where there was just a new batch that qualified. Galway, Mayo, Sligo, Dublin, obviously, Kilkenny, maybe, and then there's a few up in Northern Ireland as well. So if anybody's closer to up there, then they might be closer to go to them.
There's going to be people north, south, east, and west. But it's brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant speaking with you guys. For anyone watching in, you can follow Meredith at pawfessional.ie. I'm presuming that's the website as well.
That's it, yeah.
We have been Ruby Reese Official, and thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your
experience. Thanks for having me.
Story. Thanks a million, and have a great Tuesday evening. Thank you everyone for watching in, and see you all soon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.